away their butts when you look at the clothes they wear. Masculine women, feminine men, which is the rooster, which is the hen? It's hard to tell them apart today and say, Sister is busy learning to shave, brother just lost his permanent wave. It's hard to tell them apart today. Hey, hey, girls were girls and boys were boys when I was the time. Now we don't know who is who or even what's what. Slippers and trousers, baggy and wide. Nobody knows who's walking inside those masculine women and feminine men.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Cabaret Mattachine. I hope none of you have stumbled in here by mistake. You, sir, you look like you've absolutely no idea what's going on. But that's okay, that's okay. We are here to think outside of the limits of the outside world. What is your name, good sir?
Billy.
Billy! Ha! I see you are still holding on to your normal person name. How tragic. I meant your fairy name, Billy. Do you know how to find your fairy name? Do you know how to do that?
No, I'm sorry.
No, I'll tell you then. The way you find your fairy name is you have to think of a flower, and then you think of the name of a biscuit, or a cake, or a dessert. You're a guilty pleasure, Billy. So what would your fairy name be? Flower.
Rosie.
Rosie. And then a biscuit.
Rosie. Kimberly.
Rosie Kimberly, a round of applause. You will be needing this, Rosie Kimberly, because there is a little bit of audience participation in this show, in case you haven't realized. You are all my fellow participants. You thought you were coming for a nice little night in the theater where I would not be able to make eye contact with you. What is your fairy name? Flower and a biscuit.
Dandelion, Kimberly is the only one that's coming into my head.
You look like a Jaffa Cake person. Dandelion Jaffa Cake is your fairy name. A round of applause for Dandelion. You will also be eating one of these, Dandelion. So, why have you all been called here to this secret underground location? Well, I have been sent by the powers that be with a little fairy magic. A little radical fairy magic. And a show called Cabaret Mattachine. Now you might ask, what is a radical fairy? Well, I am a radical fairy, and so all will be revealed as the evening progresses. And my name is Stefan Fae. Now, this show is called Cabaret Mattachine. And the Mattachine Society was the very first gay rights organization in the world. It was established in 1950 by a guy called Harry Hay, or as I like to call him, Harry Hay. And Harry Hay was also a founding father of the Radical Faerie movement. So we are doing something a little bit clandestine. We are getting back to the roots, ladies and gentlemen. Back to the roots. So, I come before you with a Mattachine manifesto and a show about how this particular radical fairy finally got his wings. The personal is political, after all. Manifesto, or as I like to call it, Womanifesto. Point the first. Let he who is without sin burst the first bubble. Maestro. There once was a boy, and his name was Stefan. He had bright eyes and a very peculiar talent, unlike any of the other boys. Stefan could blow fantastic bubbles. Bubbles of every imaginable shape and size, in all the colours of the rainbow. He could blow bubbles that were so big, they would float high up into the air. They would float high up into the air. Keep going, keep going, keep going. High up into the air. And people for miles around them would see them and say, those bubbles are very strange. And from a little boy, his mother must be at her wit's end. That's enough. Stefan would spend all day long blowing bubbles and watch them disappear into the clouds. He wondered what sort of adventures the bubbles might have, or how small the world must look from such a height, high above the ground. "See here, Stefan," said his mother, not unkindly. "It is no good for a young boy to be so fascinated with blowing bubbles that disappear into the clouds. A young boy must keep his 2 feet on the ground, just like all the other young boys." But Stefan longed to float high up into the air, like one of his bubbles. To be just like all the other young boys was boring and dull. They had no interest in blowing such fantastic bubbles as he did. One day, the other boys saw Stefan blowing bubbles in the park. "So it's you who have been blowing these bubbles," said one of the boys. "I heard that only little girls blow bubbles like you do." "And fairies," said another. "Are you a fairy?" Stefan did not know what a fairy was, but from the way the boys had said it, he imagined it wasn't something good. I'm not a fairy, no. I just like making different colours with my bubbles." "He must be a fairy," said the other. And all the boys picked up stones off the ground and threw them at Stefan's bubbles, bursting them with a little pop. Stefan could feel his eyes filling with tears. After the boys had gone, Stefan sat and hiccuped little bubbles and thought that perhaps his mother was right. Maybe he shouldn't blow bubbles like this. Maybe blowing bubbles was a thing for little girls and for fairies. All the time in the world. No sense of stagecraft whatsoever. Seat. All sitting comfortably? Yes. Little boxes on a hillside, little boxes made of ticky-tacky, little boxes on a hillside, and they all look just the same. There's a pink one, and a green one, and a blue one, and a yellow one, and they're all made out of ticky-tacky, and they all look just the same. And the people in the houses all went to the university, where they all got put in boxes, and they all turned out the same. There are doctors and lawyers and business executives, and they're all made out of ticky-tacky, and they all look just the same. And they all play on the golf course and drink their martinis dry. And they all have pretty children, and the children go to school. Then the children go to summer camp and then to the university, where they all get put in boxes and they all turn out the same. And the boys go into business and marry and raise a family in boxes made of ticky-tacky, and they all just look the same. There's a pink one and a green one and a blue one and a yellow one, and they're all made out of ticky-tacky, and they all look just the same. Thank you, thank you, thank you. In 1979, Harry Hay became one of the founding fathers of the Radical Faerie movement in response to what he saw as increasing tendencies towards heteronormativity within the gay community. This is what the academics like to say about gay people nowadays. The gays are becoming too heteronormative. And what heteronormative means is behaving like straight people. And I mean straight in the broadest sense of the word, behaving just like everybody else. Now, I know there are plenty of gay people out there who want nothing more than a house in the suburbs with the white picket fence and all the rest. And all power to you kids. If it weren't for gays in the suburbs, Twink wouldn't have anyone to walk the dogs with. But, I suppose, for my part, I have just never felt comfortable behaving just like everybody else. Bringing us to the second point of the manifesto. Listen to the May Queen. Same, give it to me. Same, give it to me. Same, give it to me. Listen to the sound of the lady in the mirror who's forever spinning round, bringing food and water and that little bit of ground to the lucky and the lovers on the other side of town. Listen to the May Queen, baby. Answer to the May Queen now. Blessings from the May Queen, baby. Rise up as the dead wood comes crashing to the ground. Answer love and answer lies in twirls of parading crowns. Children crying, houses burning, castles falling down. Listen to the mirror breaking, always on the make and taking, crying as the lantern light goes down. Listen to the May Queen, baby. Answer to the May Queen now. Blessings from the May Queen, baby. Rise up as the dead wood comes crashing to the ground. Earlier this year, I made a trip to Short Mountain, the oldest Radical Faerie sanctuary in the US, for a gathering called Beltane, or Yaltana, if you're from this part of the world. And Yaltana is a spectacular springtime fertility ritual, a time for new beginnings, a time for realizing and remembering that being different or strange is not something to be hidden away or forgotten, but is in fact your greatest triumph. Cruise a little monster and break a little bread, never knowing how to get that little bit ahead. Letters written, never answered, famous later, ever after. Listen to this feeling of the new world coming round. Listen to the May Queen, baby. Answer to the May Queen now. Blessings from the May Queen, baby. Rise up as the dead wood comes a-crashing to the ground. When you arrive at a fairy gathering, everyone is invited to take a fairy name. And in taking your fairy name, you are given the invitation to let go. To let go of inhibitions, or expectations, of inadequacy, self-doubt. But most of all, the fairies have a way of inviting you to let go of shame. And shame is something that gay people know all too well. And the cause of this ranges from so-called reasoned debate and religious conservatism at home, right the way through to institutionalized violence in places like Uganda and Russia. But in Short Mountain, surrounded by misfits and faggots and fabulous outsiders, I learned to stand tall and to rid myself of shame. Clearly. On one particularly sunny morning at the fairy gathering, I arrived at the sanctuary bathhouse, to wash off the body paint from the night before. And one of the fairies had dragged this huge Victorian bathtub out onto the veranda overlooking the vegetable garden outside of the bathhouse. and I watched as she filled the bathtub with buckets of thick gold glitter. And then one by one, she scooped the buckets high above her head at my eyes, covered the surrounding bodies in what looked like glittering seeds from some enormous sunflower. And it felt a little bit like I was being reminded of something. Something I'd forgotten, perhaps, or tucked away. We all need a little sparkly reminder sometimes, don't we? What's important, I suppose, is that I felt the connection. I felt connected. Listen to the May Queen, baby. Answer to the May Queen now. Blessings from the May Queen, baby. Rise up as the dead wood comes a-crashing to the ground.
Let's have a kiki. Let's have a kiki.
This society, therefore, has failed to address something fundamental. So there's something fundamentally wrong. So to go off then and come up with a peripheral issue, which gay marriage is, in my view, and to deal with that first, before dealing with the raw core, the bloody core of our family law and our family life in this country, that is satire.
If you really did, like I respect you in civil partnership, if you really respected me, you wouldn't try to pinch what I have.
The problem I have with what Mr. Panty is saying is that he has redefined the word homophobia. And he is now saying that if you don't agree with his thinking on gay issues, you're homophobic.
For the last 2 months, I have been lectured to by heterosexual people about what homophobia is and about who is allowed to identify it. Straight people have lined up, ministers, senators, barristers, journalists, have lined up to tell me what homophobia is and to tell me what I am allowed to feel oppressed by. People who have never experienced homophobia in their lives, people who have never checked themselves at a pedestrian crossing, have told me that unless I am being thrown into prison or herded onto a cattle truck, then it is not homophobia, and that feels oppressive. And so now, Irish gay people, we find ourselves in this ludicrous situation where we are not only not allowed to say publicly what we feel oppressed by, we're not even allowed to think it, because the very definition, our definitions, have been disallowed by our ethics. And for the last 2 weeks, I've been denounced from the floor of the Opticians newspaper column to the seething morass of internet comments, denounced for using hate speech, because I dare to use the word homophobia. And it's just a polarization that the word homophobia is no longer available to gay people, which is a spectacular, neat Orwellian trick, and a 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 neat Orwellian trick.
Deep in darkest, wintry Russia, there lives a special man. A retired lieutenant colonel, no less. A leader with a plan. demonstrate the strength of manly Russian standards to show the world he's not afraid of Western moral slander. So, raise our glass to Vladimir, then smash it on the floor. This tyrant in the Kremlin has a lot to answer for. Raise a glass to Vladimir and smash it on the floor. We queers will not go quietly, we will take this no more. So Vladimir Putin, up yours, hey!
She wanted to test her husband. She knew exactly what to do. Pseudonym to fool him. She couldn't have made a worse move. She sent him letters, and he received them with a strange delight. Just like his wife, but how she was before the tears, and how she was before the years flew by, and how she was when she was beautiful. She sang the letter, babushka, 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 ya-ya. Babushka, 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 ya-ya. She wanted to take it further, so she arranged a place to go, to see if he would fall for her incognito. And when he laid eyes on her, he got the feeling they had met before. Uncanny how she reminds him of his little lady. Capacity to give him all he needs, just like his wife before she praised on him, just like his wife when she was beautiful. He shouted out, babushka, 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 ya-ya. Babushka, 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 ya-ya.
Thus bringing us rather neatly to the final point of the War Manifesto. Clap your hands if you believe in fairies. And thus concludes our Cabaret Mattachine. Go back to this again. We call this the something is afoot motif. Something is afoot. Thus concludes the tale of Stefan Fae and his adventures with the Radical Faeries and beyond. Stefan knew that sometimes people are going to burst your bubble. But he also knew that there are plenty of people out there blowing bubbles of their own. Yes. Okay, that's enough. Because of that, Stefan could believe in great and fabulous things. Stefan Fae believed, as the late, great James Bradton once said, that you should follow your own weird. But most of all, Stefan Fae believed in fairies. Gilded are we in bats of Maytime, glitter soaked in sunshine. And fairies dance and prance and take a chance when minds are wakened, taking roads untaken. And that kiss casts a spell. If you believe in fairies on a summer's eve, I believe, I do believe, I believe in all of you, and all of me, and all of us, and all of we, and all of it, and I am it, and you are it, and he is it, and she is it, and it is it, and so is that, and it is it, and that is that. Oh, it is this, and it is thus, and it is them, and it is us, and it is here, and it is now, and here it is, and here we are. This is it. This is really it. This is all there is. And it's perfect as it is. I believe, I believe, I believe in fairies. I believe, I believe. I believe, I believe, I believe, I believe, I believe, I believe. I believe in doing drag. And in the fags. And the dykes. Especially the dykes. And I believe that if you are transgender, you are a celestial being. And I believe that pretty much any deviation from the status quo is a privilege of the divine. And I believe in all of you. Come to me, thou blessed be. Come to me if you believe in fairies. I believe, I do believe. I believe, I believe, I believe in fairies. I believe, I believe. It's a sing-along. I believe, I believe, I believe in fairies. I believe, I believe. Keep going. I believe, I believe, I believe in fairies. I believe, I believe. I will know if you're believe. I believe, I believe, I believe in fairies. I believe, I believe. Okay, I'm gonna drop out. Keep going, keep going. I believe, I believe, I believe in fairies. I believe, I believe, I believe in fairies. I believe, I believe, I believe in fairies. I believe, I believe, keep going, keep going, keep going. I believe. Stefan Fae left the fairies of the mountain, he threw his head back and blew the most fantastic bubble he'd ever blown, of purest opalescent pearl. As he stepped inside, the fairies blew tiny glittering soap suds to buoy him up.